You can open your eyes. That was a sound that you heard. Beth Hagen was the one that gave this to me. It was made in Africa. But every culture, indigenous culture in the world, has one of these bull roars. And they make a different frequency. And every culture has a different frequency based on where they're located on the planet. And at the grid line or a sacred site. So the whole world has these bull roars, the indigenous tribes. And if you could listen to them all at once, the way we did with Rob Porter when we did our ohms, you would hear this combined frequencies of sound that the indigenous people made. So why did they do it? And this is research done by many people. It creates a circular vortex. And this vortex allows the spirit to rise up into the heavens. And it created an opening for their spirit to rise up 20,000 years ago. So over time, there have been many instruments that have been made to give us a spiritual experience. I have one instrument that you're all familiar with. I'll just play it for a little bit. But then I have other instruments that are electronic synthesizer instruments. And each of these instruments make different sounds. So I'm not playing the sound on my part so that you can hear sound. I'm playing the sound, you can close your eyes, and you can see if you can find a sound that seems to be like Dane Rudyard would say, find your tone, is the ability to find the resonant frequency within yourself. These aren't words, so you can't find it with words, you only can find it with sound. So I'm going to choose a few of these synthesizers and play them very delicately so that you can just hear the range of sounds that are part in my own work. I have a big performance, this is quite small, that is our world in space. In other words, we are total sonic beings. I've talked, if any of you came to my talk, I talked about how interstellar sounds affect the microtubules in the brain. There's so much research between the interconnection of sounds in the universe and how they wash through us and give us a certain kind of consciousness. And knowing our own tone, we can blend our own sound of the sounds you can hear, the cochlear, non-cochlear sounds you can hear, the resonant frequency of the earth, the Schumann frequency, and how the Schumann frequency is interacting with the solar wind. That's an amazing sound. And you can go to National Geographic or NASA, and you can listen to all the sounds of all the planets. I'm sure you all have. But what is your sound? And that's kind of like what I want to do right now. But first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the Tibetan bowl sounds, because everyone knows the Tibetan bowl sounds. And I know Jakat, who's assisting Rob Potter here, she's going to go down to Soul Connection, and she's going to buy a B-tone bowl for the highest chakra. So the tones, I'm sure many of you have a bowl, and I'm just going to play many of the frequencies that the bowls make. And this is, I'm sure it's quite, I don't know when the first bowl was made. Maybe someone here does, but the bowls have been used through metallurgy and mixing bronze and tin to get that right sound. I'm sure you have a tingshaws. Many people have a tingshaw. I have a very fantastic set of tingshaws. Didn't bring them. Okay, so now some Tibetan bowl sounds. That's different than a lot of words. It gives you the opportunity to be with yourself. I'll go back. So, that's inner exploration without words. And I think there's a lot of knowledge that can be gained in this realm. And I think if you try it yourself, I think it's very helpful. Was that Susan? Well, you could do it forever. We have a big photo shoot up in the other meadow. Give us some time to get there. So happy that you liked it. I hope you liked it. Yeah. Thanks for coming and listening. The bull roarer is from Beth Hagen. You can look her up, BETHEHAGAN, and she collects them from all over the world. And every culture has a different frequency, a low frequency, a high frequency. The Australians are very, very, very low. The Aboriginals, their wood is very thick, and it's tapered on both ends. This one is very thin. So if you spin it very fast, you get a very high pitch, and then when it goes slow, it wobbles into a very low pitch. So anytime I would go out into the wilderness, which is a lot, I would do it in the desert. And that way it sets the tone in the desert, and then I have a whole lot more equipment. And we try to tune into the rocks, the birds, and whatever else. And it gives you a whole different relationship to the cosmos. And I think a little dose of that, and maybe a little dose. Yeah.
You know, we used to
a little dose of some of the sound, and then a little dose of some of the reading. So if you want to, and then all of the rules. We saw the rule in the first, the first lady that spoke. Number 1 rule, everything is one. Number 2 rule, you exist. And number 3 rule, we exist and change in our existence. So these are lessons that you can gain from this particular conference I've gained. But this sound, when you do the sounds, when you make the sounds yourself with your own mind, this is your listening, and your mind is moving because you hear the sound. But myself, I have to pay attention. I'm paying attention to the sound moving. I don't want it to jar, because I believe that sound is a living being, believe it or not. I believe that sound is alive. And we've imposed on sound really a lot of strict notational systems. But the synthesizer is it's very different. You can blend your own notation, your mental notation, your subjective notation, your conceptions, or your cosmological notations, or however you think. And then you create a sound with that, and then see if you can blend your sound with the way you think. But you have to eliminate a lot of like Miss Eisenhower was talking about, many of the things that prevent us from thinking, or the control that is imposed on us. But when you find your own tone, that goes beyond any kind of like rigid kind of belief system. You can't repeat algebra or something like that when you hear the sound. You're free to move like you haven't ever had that freedom. It's a freedom that you can enjoy. And in that freedom, I believe, is where our evolution is. I really believe that. So I think we don't have a lot of space ambient for meditation, but I think we're going to do that. But I do have a lot of sound on Bandcamp and, SoundCloud and YouTube. But as I've evolved, the sounds definitely have changed to become more, I have words, but I don't want to use them. I will. One, etheric, Ambient is another word that's used in London. They have the Ambient Sound Society, and a lot of the Europeans are playing ambient sounds. They can be repetitive, and I hope that you noticed that I wasn't too repetitive. I tried to change the sound really subtly and then add another sound to join with the sound, and then drop that sound out completely so that you can still enjoy your journey with a different sound. And so I try not to change. I try not to interrupt like a surgeon. I don't want to make a mistake and cut a nerve. And that's essentially what it's like when you take. Try to be responsible for that sound for you. And that's kind of like, I didn't plan on doing this here at all. I just planned on sitting down and playing. And I says, no, I don't think that's right. I think I wanted to help you feel a sound. And so I made the sounds basically so that you could travel with them. Oh, for gosh sakes, for so many thousands of years, Yeah, she's wondering how they can carve this stick down so it makes a particular frequency, was her question. And I heard that question, and now I'm going to answer that question. They can't hear it over there. It's just trial and error, and their own culture. I mean, if you heard my presentation the other day, you have the Dinka tribe in Africa. It sounds totally different than the yodeling from other African tribes. When I got this bull roar, I had several, but the Australians were too low for me. When I heard this one, this was amazing. So it helped. It tuned me in. So I think when they make them, I mean, you can buy them online, but I think you really have to be careful. The commercial ones are really not that nice. This is mahogany, hand-carved to a particular frequency. And you can look up the bull roar on Google, and you can. There's
Bullroarer. We used to take the rulers you have in your class, and we used to take our shoelaces out and tie it in a hole, and then we'd spin it, and then go and then also they make bull roars with stones, so you can use the stone.
Come.
In class in Iran, when I grew up as a kid, we used to take the school class rulers and our shoelaces and tie it in there and go, make a bull roar. But you can also, in Australia, they have little stones that are called churningas, and which is like a bull roar, but it's a churninga, and it has a stone with a hole in it. And
Can I interrupt?
Yeah.
I really appreciate what Eric's saying, but I don't want to get you carried away on the factual aspects of the bull roar. You can get the facts. You can get the facts on the type of stone. You can get the facts on the length of the wood. But what you can't get is the spiritual attunement that these tribes have. This is the reason they have these. For us Westerners in logical mindsets, it's this long, it's that thin, you spin it this fast. No. You try to find the resonant frequency. They tried to find the resonant frequency. We probably could never, because you'd have to just keep on testing bull roars until you were blue in the face. So anyway, it's an ancient instrument, and I think there are several books out on the history of ancient instruments. Grass, you put the grass between your thumbs when you was a kid, and you blow it, and it has a high shriek sound. That's an instrument, and it was used. Tribes, many together in circles, blow grass and have a rhythm just with grass. So anyway, ancient instruments versus 21st century synthesizers is a big, long stretch, but it does the same thing. And I highly recommend you find some sort of instrument that gives you some pleasure and it centers you. I mean, you all became a little centered, maybe, a little quiet, trying to listen. What were you listening for? It's your mind that's moving. And that's primarily the reason I'm here, is just to share that your mind moves with sound. And you can move out of the stricture or the structure of what knowledge you have. And it's important to find out what knowledge you're using when you're using sound, and getting rid of maybe some ways of thinking that you're familiar with. That's the hardest thing of all. They call it a paradigm shift. But, to get yourself out of a belief system into another belief system, and Eric and I have gone through this, and he has one and I have one. That's it. I have to run.
That was really wonderful. We thought we were getting music, but we got storytelling, and we had beautiful music, and we went on a journey and meditation, and it's really wonderful to see the creative, listen to the creative music. Thank you so much, Willard.
Thank you so